Okay, back for more. It's a little supplement to the exponential growth stuff, aided by the friendly growing rabbit population here. And this will illustrate a lot of points. First general statement to make is all we care about really in any exponential growth calculation is that simple expression, 70 divided by n, where n is the percentage growth rate. So if the percentage growth rate n equals 5%, then the amount of time it takes for the resource used to double is equal to 70 divided by 5 equal 14 years. When we do any future estimates for resource management and the like, we only care about using doubling times. Yes, you can in principle solve any exponential directly, where p in some year equals p naught at the start of the year times e to the RT, where r is a rate, in this case 5% or 0.05, and t would be the number of years that you're projecting in the future. We don't care about ever doing that, and you can't see that on the screen, so let me rewrite it. Because my screen markers are off, so p at some time in the future t equals p naught, the initial rate of usage, times e to the RT, where in this case r would be 0.05 for a 5% growth rate. Here we just multiply everything by 100, so 70 divided by n is really 7,000 divided by a percent, but it's simpler to do it this way, where 5% is just a number 5. So you can use this if you want, but we're not going to do anything with that. We don't care. You can't solve this in your head either. But this you can carry around in your head, the approximate doubling time of a population or of a resource or anything, if you know what the growth rate is. So back to the rabbits. One of the main problems with exponential growth rate determinations is that in the initial stages of an exponential growth, it looks linear. The first 4 generations of rabbits can be fit fairly well with a straight line. And so, here's the entire point. If you want to predict the number of rabbit consumers in the 7th generation, because there's 7 rabbit heads there, and you just fit the first 4, because say that's all the data you have 2 choices. You can assume that it's linear, which would lead to this as a prediction for the 7th generation of rabbits, or x equals 7 there. And clearly, if you're going to plan resource for rabbits based on linear extrapolation of the first few generations, you don't miss by a little, you miss by a huge amount. And in fact, you've only ended up planning for about 25% of the resources that the rabbits will actually need. So now you have a resource shortage for rabbits by a giant factor, by a factor of 4. The rabbits are going to use 4 times more resources than you planned for based on this linear fit. And, rabbits that have resource shortage, you get really pissed off and launch themselves ballistically at you and the like. And so in this world, there'll be a bunch of ballistic rabbits flying around because your resource planning failed to assume exponential growth. And here's the ironic thing. Okay, let's assume exponential growth. Let's do the right thing. And now we have plenty of resources for rabbits. But let's suppose we'd made a big error. Unlikely, because everything does grow exponentially. But let's suppose that, in fact, for some strange reason, the growth of rabbits did turn out to be linear. And you made a mistake, but now you don't have under-resourced rabbits. You have fat, happy rabbits. The only price you paid was you allocated extra funds for rabbits but you didn't under-resource the rabbits. And so if you always assume exponential growth, you will always be able to scale resources for the future, unless, of course, you've reached some physical limit, but that's another issue that we'll deal with in this class. And so never assume linear growth for any environmental resource. Always get the data and try to calculate from the data what the growth rate is. And every time you do that, you do a much better job at managing resources than if you think everything grows as a straight line, because that's false. Inevitably, you'll create this resource gap, which is pretty much happening in every resource today in the world, because we apparently cannot do that very simple math. In this class, one of the goals is to get you to understand why that's simple and why it's important.